I bought the land after years of saving, hunting, and daydreaming. 2 acres just outside a sleepy little development with rolling trees, a slight slope for drainage, and enough privacy to make you forget the rest of the world existed. It wasn't much to look at in the beginning, overgrown, rough. But to me, it was perfect. I had plans. A 1-story, open-concept house with a wraparound porch, solar panels, and a garden out back. Something quiet. Something mine. I started clearing the lot in early spring. By summer, we had the foundation in. I was out there every weekend, talking to the builders, hauling tools, keeping an eye on the progress like an excited kid. Then one morning, I found an envelope taped to the stake marker. Typed, official-looking, from the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. It started with, "Welcome to the neighborhood," which already rubbed me the wrong way, and went on to say I'd need to submit my house plans for approval, adjust the exterior colors to their palette. They suggested sage green or coastal tan, and begin paying monthly dues for amenities I'd never use. Pool, clubhouse, dog park, all of which were on the other side of the main road. I laughed at first, genuinely thought it was a mistake. My land wasn't in Willow Creek. I'd checked the maps a dozen times before buying. Made sure of it. So I called the number on the letter. "Willow Creek HOA," said the voice, bright and clipped. "I think there's been a mix-up," I said. "I got this letter, but my land isn't in your development." "Oh, you must be Mr. Chandler," she said. "Yes, we've been expecting your call." That's when I got my first taste of Karen. Her real name's Denise Hall, HOA president, lifelong resident, and apparently self-appointed guardian of neighborhood aesthetics. She told me, very politely, I'll admit, that while technically my land wasn't in the HOA, it visually impacted the neighborhood, and that the board had voted to extend oversight to any adjacent property. I said, "You can't just decide that." She said, "Well, we can certainly try." After that, it became a game of polite warfare. More letters, visits. She once showed up with a measuring tape to ensure setback compliance. When I told her again I wasn't part of the HOA, she said, "We'll see about that." I half expected her to plant a Willow Creek flag in my front yard and declare the territory claimed. So I went to the county clerk. Land registry had my plot clearly outlined. Not inside Willow Creek. No covenants, no easements, no attachments. The woman behind the desk even rolled her eyes when I mentioned the HOA. "They've been trying to annex anything green for years," she said. Armed with that, I wrote a letter back, formal, clear, and polite, stating that unless a court told me otherwise, I wouldn't be answering any more of their correspondence. Update 1. I thought things had finally settled down. It had been quiet for a couple of months. No letters taped to my fence. No unexpected drive-bys from Denise in her white SUV. No HOA drama. I let myself believe, maybe foolishly, that she'd accepted the situation and moved on. Then came yesterday. It was mid-morning, and I was working on setting up the rain barrels near the back of the house. I heard heavy machinery nearby, which isn't unusual. Willow Creek's been putting in some sort of community garden, or nature path, or whatever, just across the property line. But this time, the sound kept getting louder. Then I felt the vibration. I stepped out front just in time to see a yellow bulldozer rolling up my driveway. At first, I thought it had gone off course. Maybe a new guy didn't know where the HOA boundary ended. I waved my arms and shouted, but the driver didn't stop. Instead, he veered toward the small shed I'd just finished framing near the edge of the lot. I ran, yelling louder, and by some miracle, he cut the engine just before hitting the structure. The shed was spared, barely, but the real damage was already done. While cutting across my land, the dozer tore straight through the trench where the electrician had just laid conduit for the exterior lighting. Ripped up the water line too, the one that runs to the garden spigots I'd installed last week. Water was spraying like a busted fire hydrant, and the trench looked like someone had dropped a bomb in it. The driver climbed down finally, confused and pale. Said he was just following instructions from the HOA office. When I asked who gave him those instructions, he shrugged and said some lady named Denise. I stood there for a full minute before I could form words. Then I called the police. An officer came out within the hour, took pictures, talked to the driver, and nodded slowly the way people do when they're trying not to laugh at how ridiculous something is. When I told him about Denise and about the whole mess with the HOA trying to claim oversight of my property, he raised his eyebrows. "You got documentation that you're not part of the HOA?" he asked. I showed him the land registry papers. He took photos of those too. He couldn't arrest anyone on the spot. Civil matter mostly. Unless I wanted to press charges, you file a report for property damage, which I am absolutely doing. I'm already in contact with a lawyer. It's one thing to send letters. It's another to invade someone's property with heavy machinery. I don't care how many bake sales or flower beds Denise Hall oversees. What she did yesterday crossed a serious line. I spent the rest of the afternoon shutting off water, making calls, and walking the property to assess the damage. It's going to cost me maybe a few $1,000s, depending on what the electrician says about the conduit, and time, which honestly hurts more than the money. So yeah, I'm going to court. If Denise wants to play HOA tyrant, she's going to learn what happens when you mess with someone who did their homework and doesn't scare easy. Funny thing is, she still hasn't called. No apology, no explanation, just silence. But I've got her name, her orders, and a bulldozer full of proof. Update 2. So the lawyer I hired, Marta, doesn't mess around. She came highly recommended, and within a week of taking the case, she started pulling threads I didn't even know existed. Turns out this thing with Denise isn't just a case of an overzealous HOA president on a power trip. It's about land and greed. Marta got in touch with the previous owner of my property, a quiet older guy named Mr. Carmichael. He was surprised to hear about everything going on, because as it turns out, Denise had been trying to buy the land for over a year, not for the HOA, as she always claimed, but for herself. Apparently, she's had her eye on this parcel for a while. There's a natural stream that cuts through the back of the property, small but steady, and it never dries up, not even in the dead of summer. Locals say it might be spring-fed. That kind of water source is rare around here and, frankly, valuable. Carmichael had refused to sell it to the HOA because he didn't trust how they'd use it. He didn't like how aggressive Denise was getting with her offers, either. She had this habit of showing up unannounced with updated contracts and urgent board decisions. Real pushy. He said no, repeatedly. What he didn't know was that while he was still considering his options, I came along and made a clean offer with no strings. We shook hands, signed papers, and that was that. Apparently, Denise didn't take the news well. Marta's theory is that Denise's whole game now is to make my life miserable, to push me out, drive down interest in the lot, and scare me into selling. If that happens, Carmichael would technically have to deal with her again, and this time, maybe she'd get her way. Only problem for her, I'm not budging. I've got the deed, I've got the proof, and now I've got a lawyer with teeth. Funny how people reveal who they really are when they don't get what they want. Denise thought she could bully her way to ownership, but she picked the wrong guy this time. Update 3. It's funny how things settle down once you stop backing down. The lawsuit against the HOA is officially underway. My lawyer, Marta, filed on my behalf a few months ago, citing trespassing, property damage, and attempted intimidation. The case is moving along well. Turns out they didn't have a leg to stand on. The land is mine, always was, and no matter how many maps or reworded bylaws Denise tried to invent, she couldn't redraw a boundary with sheer willpower. Now, here's the part I didn't see coming. Denise, yes, that Denise, was actually arrested, not just for her stunt with the bulldozer, which the police had already flagged, but for tampering with county zoning files. Marta found out she'd been slipping edited documents into planning commission submissions, trying to make it look like my property had been annexed into the HOA years ago. The county caught wind when our filings contradicted what she submitted. Fraud, falsification, and obstruction. She was booked last month. HOA board asked her to resign, pending review, which is a nice way of saying she's done. As for my place, I'm building again. The foundation's intact, thankfully. and we were able to repair the power and water lines without having to start from scratch. The new shed is back up, and framing for the main house started last week. Feels good to hear hammers instead of excuses. The best part, though, is what we built over the stream. I'd always wanted a space where the family could sit and take in the quiet, so I had a small, open-air pavilion built. Solid cedar with a raised platform and a simple peaked roof. Kind of like a pagoda, my wife says. We set up a few benches, strung some solar lights, and it's already become our favorite spot. Sometimes in the evening, I sit there with a coffee and listen to the water run. After everything that happened, the stress, the fights, the absurdity of it all, it's a good reminder of why I bought this land in the first place. Oh, and the HOA? Well, they were ordered to pay damages. Instead of cutting a check, they offered me a small parcel of land within their development that they originally wanted to turn into a gazebo park. I took it, not because I need it, but because I wanted the deed framed on my wall, a souvenir. Sometimes, peace doesn't come easy, but it's worth the trouble.